Bitcoin is on the verge of a beautiful breakout, something that we've actually seen before on this YouTube channel, on this chart as well, and I am very excited to break it down for you. And before we get into all of that, let's just break down the facts, the exact same facts that we were talking about just yesterday on this very YouTube channel. Do me a favor and smash up the likes if you were subscribed and watching that video yesterday, because all we were talking about, really dumbing it right down. You guys know how I like it. I like to keep it simple. I like to keep things very, very straightforward. It works. It's what makes me money. We're going to talk a lot about the kind of positions available in this market right now that I'm looking at to continue to profit in this market, because there is some huge stuff that I'm actually eyeing up right now. All I was saying is that we had our support level down here at 25K. We set a high up here, and we've now set a higher low. That is it. Everybody else is reading into this stuff too much. I don't know why. They're just overreacting and panicking and just absolutely just going crazy over microscopic moves in the market. And we have been keeping it incredibly level-headed as usual. This is what we're known for in the space. And obviously that has worked out beautifully, because really all that happened, and this is nothing surprising whatsoever, all that happened to Bitcoin here was that we managed to come up here and capture a little bit of resistance, and we've come lower, and we've just found support in the exact same place that we knew we were going to find support in anyway. If we take a look at this yellow line right here, this is a yellow line that we've actually discussed previously on the channel, even though it's not on this particular chart. We have outlined that this is an area where Bitcoin has found continuous support, resistance, consolidation of any sort, and just a lot of general interaction. So of course, it's not coming as a surprise to people like you and me that we got a bounce at this price level. Obviously, it's going to come as a surprise to everybody else, all of these peanut brain traders out here that don't know what the fuck is going on. But of course, to people like you and I, the guys that are actually cleaning up and getting the cash, this kind of thing must not come as a surprise. But this is actually a really big deal. There's a few things that make this bit of price action quite significant in my opinion, and I want to cover them with you in this YouTube video right here. And the first one, the one that I think is actually really cool, is that Bitcoin, and this is not the coolest one, is that Bitcoin is now quite clearly in some sort of asymmetrical triangle. And I want to mention that this is not the cleanest symmetrical triangle in the world. It's not perfect, but what we have, bottom line, is a situation in the market here where we were ranging in quite extreme levels, and now our price level is consolidating. All right, this is super clear. Previously we were going up this high, going down this low, and now we are tightening up a little bit, and that's important. When we talk about the characteristics of the market, if we see previously that we're ranging all over the place, but then we're kind of gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller with the price range that we're actually trading in, well, that's a really clear sign that something is getting squeezed and something is getting ready to pop. And we can actually, there's a lot of different ways we can look at which way this is going to go, but the most useful way to look at which way this is going to go is actually to examine the trend, the pre-existing trend, and see which direction it's pointing in, okay? And if we go ahead and do that, the answer is unfortunately that we are going to be trending down. Our pre-existing trend from this high, the same trend that put us in this situation, is a downtrend. And so if we've got a pattern that looks something a little bit like this, you have to expect, if you're following the trend, that we will be breaking to the downside. So I want you to keep that in mind. If you're looking at this from a kind of mid-term perspective, if you're not looking at this from a long-term perspective, and if you're not looking at this from a short-term perspective, but you're in the middle, then this is actually a bearish setup on the chart. We've got a symmetrical triangle, and by the way, generally the trend, the market is going to break out in the direction of the trend 66% of the time. All right, very general, plus minus a lot. There are massive exceptions to this, but this is generally what we see. The market will generally move in the direction of the trend 66% of the time, which in and of itself isn't actually that high. But obviously, if you had to choose, you would generally want to be leaning on that side. But it's really important that we make the distinguishment that this is only if you are not looking at the long term and if you are not looking at the short term, because the long term chart is unequivocally bullish, and there is absolutely no fucking doubt about that. I've been so clear to you guys about this for so long. I've made a fucking lot of money trading this direction as well. It's no coincidence. I am always putting my money where my mouth is. You guys have known a lot about my Tron trade, which has gone so well that I've now made over 100% profit on this trade. I actually went long right here. It was a super simple trade setup. It's the same thing that I tell you guys about all the time. I keep things simple. All that happened was I identified this area of resistance. It was a very clear area of resistance. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. When we came up here, I said that I want to buy down here. I kid you not, it was that fucking simple, and now my position is in over a 100% profit, which is absolutely fucking spectacular. And it's actually looking so good that I'm now looking at potentially doubling down. It's not something that I ever do. It's probably not something that I want to do now, but it's certainly something that I would be open to considering, because this position has now gotten into a really good place where I can actually open up that avenue of thought. Not to say I'm going to do it. I've almost never done it in the past. I'm not anticipating on changing that in the future, but this position is just in such a good place that it is worth, kind of exploring some of those ideas. So we're going to come back to this in a little bit, because I think this is a beautiful trading opportunity. And of course, as usual, every trade that I make is primarily being pulled off right here on Bybit, where you can sign up and get up to $30,000 in completely free trading capital, which means that when you start trading using my link in the description down below, they are going to give you up to $30,000 that you can trade with for free. Any profits that you generate with that are completely yours to keep. bcash as well, another phenomenal option for those of you that are a little bit more privacy minded. They don't ask for KYC. And with Bitcoin, you can actually trade stocks like Tesla. You can trade Forex. You can trade commodities like gold. It is a very cool platform. It's got way more markets than Bybit. So both are well worth checking out. I'm on both and I'm using both, so definitely do consider them if you are interested. But if we do head back to the market here, specifically to the Bitcoin analysis, this is where it gets interesting, because we are generally going to be expecting this to pop to the downside here. However, right now we are starting to get to the upside. And another thing that's actually really interesting, and this is kind of the main breakout that Bitcoin might be on the verge of right now, is actually this downtrend line right here, which has actually spanned for 78 days. So basically 2.5 months at this stage now that we have been trending down underneath this diagonal resistance line. And it also happens to line up with the only, or one of the only, opportunities that Bitcoin has with the current daily resistance Ichimoku cloud. It happens to line up with basically a really thin cloud of resistance. Now look, if we delay this and we go into kind of mid-October, late October, November, and we are not able to get above the $28,000 level, well, I think Bitcoin is going to find it really hard to get above 28K after that. Okay, let me repeat that. If Bitcoin is not able to get above 28K by the middle of October, where this resistance cloud becomes significantly larger, then I don't think Bitcoin is going to have a good chance of doing it. Again, in other words, that means that Bitcoin has a window of opportunity to break out now, and that window of opportunity will close or start closing in the middle of October. It must happen now. And we're not in a particularly bad place for that to happen either. If we take a look at the last time Bitcoin did something like this, we were in a really similar situation across really similar time frames, and Bitcoin managed to pull off a 19% pump to the upside within 3 weeks. It also happened to happen, and it also happened to take place at the exact same fucking price level, which is really interesting. So and this actually perfectly fulfills my overarching theory in this market, the theory that I've been telling you guys about most in this market, the one that I've been telling you is boring as fuck and annoying as fuck, but as a result, you know that it's probably true. It is the overarching theory that I've been telling you, where Bitcoin may just end up trading sideways throughout the course of this year in a range that looks a little bit like this. And the reason that I think that these kind of ideas are so realistic is because they're so boring. And if they're boring, they're generally going to be representative of what a bear market actually looks like. In a bear market here, what we're actually doing, and this is what's really interesting, right? It's because we've all got this kind of, overall, undertaste of bearishness and pessimism and negativity because of the big drop from 69k to 16k, because we've got all of that in our just underneath, just somewhere there. We're not able, or the noobs are not able to, not even noobs, because even people that are experienced don't seem to see this, are not able to recognize that the market has doubled off the low, and from there is now consolidating at a minimum of 60% above the low, if not 75% today, for a period of 200 days. Okay, so we're pushing 7 months now that we've actually been consolidating after the price has already doubled. And guys, I mean, we put this in any other context. If the market fucking doubles off a low and then consolidates for 7 months straight, is that a bullish thing or a bearish thing? You tell me. But what I know from my knowledge as being a trader for 6 years in this space, which counts as 20 years in real life, is that if you've seen the market consolidate after it's made a major price movement, that is the best possible sign that the market can show you that this trend direction will continue. And that's why I was telling you that if you're looking at anything in between the long and short term, this looks bearish. But if you're looking at the long term, there is no room for interpretation on this as far as I'm concerned. We are in a bullish situation in the market. We've doubled off the low, we're consolidating, we're continuing to trade sideways. We're at a minimum of 60% above the low. You can't convince me that this is bearish, because I mean the price action is literally pointing upwards. So it's really hard for me to understand where these people are at. The only reason that I can think of that they're so stuck in their ways is because they are traumatized by the bear market. But let me tell you something, ladies and gents, the markets don't give a fuck how traumatized you are. They're going to go where they're going to go. It does not matter how upset the market made you a few months ago. It does not matter how upset the market made you a year ago, or the fact that it liquidated you, or the fact that you were holding Luna or some other shitcoin that crashed down to zero. It doesn't matter. The market will still go where the market wants to go. If you struggle to accept that, if that makes you unhappy, if that makes you feel like the market is too unpredictable, you need to get out. You need to take your capital and leave this space, because it will destroy you. It probably already has, and I promise you it will get worse. So do yourself a favor. Don't put yourself in the path of danger. So really, really important note there. And then, of course, if we look at the short term, well, the short-term chart for me is also pretty clear. The short-term chart for me is basically going to be coming off the major low that the market set, and this is super clear. We set a higher low, and now we are on our way to potentially sweep this high. So this is where we start talking about the future, what might happen next. So here's the thing. If Bitcoin is able to get above this high, well, then we're really doing something interesting. If Bitcoin could get above this high right here, and this is a big if, and it will be a big deal for Bitcoin, then one of the other things we're going to see is the breakout above this diagonal trending resistance line. We're going to see the breakout above this Ichimoku cloud, and potentially our path up to the $32,000 level if we pull off the exact same gain again. Again, it's really interesting that we're doing the same thing with the same kind of resistance line at the same price level, and I think that this is really, really telling of where the market is. We are just ranging because the market has not picked a clear movement altogether, and that is completely fine. We don't need to do that either. It's not a requirement. One of the things that's going to be really good if Bitcoin can pull this off is it's going to put Bitcoin right here up at that $32,000 range. And what's really, really powerful about this is that this is now going to be our third consecutive attack at the resistance level. And if you pay attention to the support level right here, it was very, very similar. In fact, I've got it drawn out for you on this chart here. We had attack number 1 at support, attack number 2, and attack number 3. And it was on attack number 3 that we had the breakout to the downside. Well, now we are doing something very similar in reverse. Does that mean we're going to break above 32? I'm not saying yes. However, what I can tell you is that fucking nobody is prepared for that outcome right now. Absolutely everybody and their grandmother wants to see the price of Bitcoin crash down to 20K and 15K and so on and so forth. And as a result of that, I am very open to the consideration that Bitcoin might end up pumping significantly higher than $32,000. That's just how these markets operate. So we're doing something very similar right now. Is it going to play out again? Like I said, I don't know. I can't give you that kind of guarantee. But what I can see very clearly is that we are set up to do something very, very explosive, and nobody is prepared for it. Does that mean we're going to do this explosive thing? Absolutely not. Bitcoin has blundered many opportunities throughout this bear market. It would not be a massive surprise if we blundered another one, but I think what would be an even bigger surprise is that we actually do start ranging up at this point. And I do think, like I said, that absolutely nobody is open to that possibility. So baby steps. What do we do first? We've got to clear this high. This is the prior high that the market set here. It's sitting at 27.5. We must get at this level, and then more importantly, we must get to this level, and more importantly, above this level, in order to show us with the short term that not only are we setting higher lows, but also that we are setting higher highs. If we can do that, our next key level to break is going to be up here. So that's 28.1. This is going to be our next key price level to break because this was the main high that Bitcoin set. If we can get above this, well, then we can really start to zoom out and look at the next key areas for the price to hit. And for me, it's going to be any of these other resistance blocks a little bit higher. I think this is a really nice resistance block for Bitcoin to struggle at a little bit. And if we actually take a look at the Coinbase chart, I've illustrated that this is actually a really big range. 28.6 is going to be that key level if we break this wick, if we break this one right here, but there is going to be a lot more resistance up ahead. There's no way around it. Unfortunately, you can't really, draw this any other way. I wish I could tell you something a little bit more hopeful, but Bitcoin has a hell of a struggle up ahead. It has a hell of an uphill battle to fight. And really, from that particular perspective, if we stay zoomed in on this short-term time frame, well, short-term, clearly we're bullish. But if we kind of zoom out a little bit more, and we're actually looking at, if Bitcoin can get up to this kind of 30K level, and the fact that Bitcoin is right now fighting this uphill battle, it's not looking amazing. Bitcoin needs a lot more strength than what it's been displaying, in my opinion, over these last few months and weeks. It needs a lot more strength in order to get back to the top of this range. But what I do want to remind you guys about is that Bitcoin can find that strength really quickly and things can change really quickly. This entire move up from this low up to this wick right here happened within the space of a day. So, it can all change really, really quickly. And then before you know it, you are ranging right at the top, getting ready to get that real breakout. Will attempt number 3 be the one that takes Bitcoin higher? Of course, that would be the $1 million question, and I, as somebody who studies only classical technical analysis, firmly believe that the more often we test a certain area, the more likely it is to break, which also, by the way, is why Bitcoin is potentially approaching a dangerous area, because we've tested the 25K level 2 times as well. So if we do something a little bit like this and come back down, well, we're also going to probably be more likely to break this one as well. One thing I want you guys to keep in mind, if it applies to you, if you care about it, is that the halving is coming up. The SEC is failing horribly, at trying to prevent a Bitcoin ETF and so on and so forth. So, there's a lot of good fundamental factors that are kind of locked and loaded, ready to go with news outlets. Should they decide to push the green button on their news articles and publish all of the bullish ones, there's a lot going in Bitcoin's favor right now that's just kind of loading, and what I wouldn't want you to be is, I wouldn't want you to be surprised if these kind of price areas right here, where we've been consolidating at horrible price ranges for weeks, I wouldn't want you to be surprised if this turns out to be, in hindsight, just a massive area of accumulation for the market. It would make perfect sense, and it would really be in line with a lot of the kind of news outcomes that we might be expecting out here in the market as well. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, here's something really interesting. Yesterday, we were talking about the dollar being super high and potentially retracing back down to support. And we've got a couple charts to show you what that might look like here. I want to show you, one of the big charts that I've already been talking to you about quite a bit on this YouTube channel. By the way, this is Tron. We'll actually take a look at that in just a second. But the dollar, this is a chart that I was showing you previously. If it did manage to come back down, could be looking at something a little bit like this, right? And obviously the retracement is happening a lot faster. It doesn't really matter. We're not going for exacts here. It's just ideas that we're exploring. If we are able to get that back test here for the dollar, this is where we really could see it absolutely rip. What we need to keep in mind, and I think what people forget, is that while the dollar itself is not in a strong position, the dollar is measured against other currencies. That's what the dollar index is. It's measured against a basket of other currencies: Swiss franc, GBP, Japanese yen, euro, so on and so forth. And those are weak currencies. 𝗬𝗢𝗥𝗙𝗚 put it really well in one of his recent live streams. He's like, the rest of these currencies are zombies. So while the dollar is, dying, or that's a pretty good, I think it's a fair word to use. The dollar is dying. Other currencies are already zombies. And that's what we're measuring the dollar against. So it's really important, really helps us keep perspective of these kind of things. Of course, while all of this is happening, if we look at natural gas and just other kind of forms of oil, they're moving up. So, I mean, it's very clear that the dollar is getting weaker. I don't want you guys to lose perspective of that. It's not in a good place. It just happens to be that our other currencies are significantly worse. So, this is important. I mean, if oil is going up, it's a very clear example that your dollars are getting weaker. But this is what, this is inflation. I mean, if commodities like oil go up in price, everything becomes more expensive. And that's inflation. So there you go. And we kind of bring this back to the market. Well, I mean, if the dollar is pulling back right now, that would really explain a lot of Bitcoin's gains. It also perfectly lines up with what I was saying to you guys yesterday about Bitcoin being in a really bullish position, considering that the S&P 500 had fallen below its support, but Bitcoin didn't. And this was one of the really big points that I made for you guys in yesterday's video. Again, do me a favor and smash up the likes if you remember that from yesterday's video. I was talking to you about how that does put Bitcoin in a potentially very interesting bullish position, and it seems like Bitcoin has actually applied that very, very nicely. Now, of course, this doesn't need to stay this way. Bitcoin could also just fumble the bag and drop down, and correlate or decorrelate or do anything, go in circles, with the S&P 500. I mean, these things are not exact, and this is a point that I really want to make very clear with you guys, because I think that a lot of people miss it. You need to apply nuance, and you need to have space for this kind of margin of error. If you don't, you're going to really disappoint yourself with your analysis. Things are just not that perfect in the real world. The markets are gritty. The markets are not perfect. They don't go to perfect levels and so on and so forth. But again, if we're just kind of looking for these general ideas, it does continue to confirm for me that Bitcoin is in a pretty solid, strong position right here. So I'd love to see the S&P 500 rally higher. Like I said, I don't really see any support for it right now, though. And so I am going to have to expect it to, maybe do something a little bit like this and then come back down. Could this be a fake out and then we just kind of recover back up? Absolutely, yeah. It's not something that I'm gonna put my word on too much. I don't want to stick to a certain outcome too closely on the S&P 500 here. But it is something. I'm sorry, I haven't been showing you the chart, but it is something that I want to keep in mind. And by the way, the only thing you missed was I said the S&P 500 could do this, or kind of spike back up like this. But I think it's more likely we do something a little bit like this. Yeah, sorry about the camera there. That's my bad. But there you go, guys. I really hope you have enjoyed this one. You know exactly what to do if you have. Oh, I've completely forgot. I did want to talk to you a little bit more about Tron. The situation with Tron right here, I mean, this is another kind of display of my entry, is that we've now got a similar kind of situation here. This area is resistance, 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 resistance. This is a much more formidable area of resistance too, by the way, because we got rejected here back in June, and then again back in July, and then again in September. This area, has been resistance for much longer than this one. This area was only resistance for like a month before I entered the position, but this one's been resistance for like 3 months. And if the Tron price action brings itself back down to this level, especially considering how much of a problem Tron has had over here, this could actually be a really interesting entry level for a trade. So, like I said, it's probably not something that I'm going to be super interested in taking, because I've already gotten like a god tier entry on here. I don't really feel like I need to chase this market and get another one. But if I wasn't already in this position, it would definitely be something that I would consider. And it's not the only coin that's printing these kind of patterns right now, but Tron does happen to be one of the best performance that I'm seeing right now. So that's why, I did want to talk to you guys about it. And like I said, anything that you want to trade is going to be available on Bybit with up to 30k in free trading capital. When you start trading using my link, you're going to get that 30k deposited into your account. If you want to buy and sell shit coins without paying any fees whatsoever, Bybit also has that available for you with 0% spot trading fees. And like I said, if you don't like the KYC, if you want a little bit more additional flexibility, well then BingX is going to give you over $100,000 in bonuses, and they're not even going to ask you for your passport documents and stuff like that, which is super, super cool. You also get traditional finance markets as well. So nice big selling point there. All right, guys, I really hope you have enjoyed this one. You know what to do if you have. Hit up the like, subscribe, tick the bell, do all that beautiful stuff, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.